for welcoming me here today, and for Pastor Jeff for welcoming me as well. So I'll tell you a little bit about myself, but I'll start off with my parents. So 42 years ago, they immigrated from Philippines here to Toronto and got married here and then had one child, me. Now for the last 33 years, I'm proud to say that I have been living with my parents. Yes, together, under the same roof. Now, I know some of you may be able to relate when I say that it's not always easy to live with one's parents. But what I must say is the time that I've spent recently learning to understand my parents better has helped me to not only understand them for all that they are, but to understand and accept myself for all that I am. You see, all throughout my teens and my 20s, I actually had a hard time accepting myself. But no one, including myself, would have known that back then. I was known to be happy. I was known to be happy. I was known to be confident. But I was getting my happiness and confidence in all the wrong places. I got it from being beautiful. I got it from being popular. And I got it from being educated and successful in my career. See, I was looking externally for happiness. When it came to relationships, I always needed a man to love me, and when that became unfulfilling, I moved on to the next man. When it came to careers, after just 4 years of being an occupational therapist, I changed careers and became an elementary school teacher. And by the time I was 30, I was contemplating my third career change. In my first 30 years, I had traveled to 30 countries. While it was mostly out of a desire to explore the world, admittedly, it was partly because I was searching for something that was missing within. I was looking outwards. I was too busy with life that I didn't clearly look at myself to see how I was living my life. Until life decided to slow me down. Life threw something at me that would give me no choice but to stop and look within. Life gave me a spinal cord injury. Several years ago, I decided I wanted to get my motorcycle license. You see, my dad is an avid motorcyclist, and ever since I was young, he's been riding motorcycles. So I wanted to get my license, get my own bike, and one day ride through the mountains with my dad as he did so every summer. So on August 28th, 2010, I went to a school to learn how to ride a motorcycle when I lost control, accelerated into a curb, was thrown 10 feet across the air, flipped upside down, hit a fence, and landed on my back, sustaining a burst fracture of my 12th thoracic vertebrae, compressing my spinal cord 60%. There I was on this beautiful sunny day, blue skies, lying on the green grass, realizing that I could not move my legs. I was paralyzed from the waist down. Now, fortunately for me, Sunnybrook Hospital was just 20 minutes away, actually. Now, I'll never forget those moments in that ambulance as I'm lying there looking at the aluminum ceiling, and I'm laying on the stretcher with pains intensifying in my back by the minute. Now, I should have been in a state of shock, panic, and fear, but instead I was in a state of surrender, peace, and gratitude. Surrender at God's will, no matter what it was, even if it meant being in a wheelchair for the rest of my life. Why? I was at peace because I was grateful. Grateful that I still had the most important thing in life, relationships. Even if I didn't have the ability to ever walk again, I had the ability to have relationships. A relationship with myself, a relationship with others, but most importantly, a relationship with God. But you see, the weird thing is, I had never thought like that before. I never told my friends, surrender to God's will, be thankful for be thankful for your relationships. I had never said those words before. And yet in these moments of vulnerability, I was embodying this truth with conviction. And I really believe it's because in those precious moments of being physically broken, in those moments of real surrender, I felt God's grace overflowing from within. So now at Sunnybrook, I was in surgery for about 9 hours. And the on-call surgeon was able to decompress my spinal cord, take the burst vertebrae, and replace it with a bone graft for my left hip, taking 2 titanium rods and 8 screws to stabilize my spine, and those remained there permanently. After surgery, he went out into the waiting room and told family and friends that I would never walk again. Fortunately for me, when I woke up, I did have movement in my hips and my knees. But that was it. I had no movement elsewhere. I needed 2 people, not just to help me get in and out of bed, but just to roll side to side. I had no control of my bowel and bladders. I needed help with bathing and dressing. I had severe neuropathic pain where just taking my pants off or pulling the blankets up my legs felt like knives cutting through my muscle. It was horrible. Now, when I woke up after surgery, the days were filled with pain and struggle, and yet I was in a state of hope. And there's a reason for that. There was a particular message that kept resonating with me that summer before the accident. Whether it was a card that someone gave me, a tweet on Twitter, an email, or a Facebook post, a particular message kept resonating, and that was actually the scripture that Pastor Jeff just read. Suffering produces perseverance. Perseverance, character, and character, hope. And so when I woke up after surgery, that message was at the forefront of my mind. And so I knew that all of these pains and struggles from here forward were an opportunity for me to choose to respond in a way that would help me grow. After the surgery, I took out my journal and I wrote a contract, a commitment to myself, that from this day forward, I would commit to growing stronger, not just physically, but emotionally and spiritually. Now, I was fortunate to have many people of faith in my life, and one in particular came to visit me at Sunnybrook Hospital with a prayer. And that prayer is called Prayer for Physical Healing. And there was one line in particular that changed the way I framed my desire to heal and grow. And that line goes, "And Father, restore me to full health in mind and body so that I may serve you for the rest of my life." That prayer made me realize that I can't just work hard to heal and grow for the simple sake of healing and growing. I need to work hard to heal and grow for the purpose of loving others and serving others as God wills me to do. So I'm not going to work hard just to simply recover. I'm going to work hard to recover and glorify God in the process. So after 2 weeks at Sunnybrook, I was transferred to Lyndhurst Hospital, where I stayed as an inpatient for the next 3 months. I had overwhelming support from family and friends, a great rehab team, and one patient in particular, a roommate actually. His name is John Smith, and he changed the trajectory of my life. You see, John had suffered complete paralysis from the neck down after a bicycle accident, and yet in comparison to all of my friends and family, he smiled the most. He was the most joyful. So we were in the physio gym one day, and I'm like, "John, you've lost so much. I don't get it. You still smile every day. How do you do it? What's up?" And he said this. He said, "I'm just grateful. I'm grateful for freedom, because God gave me the freedom to choose to live my life however I choose. God gave me freedom to respond to life as I choose." And I was like, yes, you're right. Because some people think that this responsibility is a burden, but this choice is freedom. And so for the next 3 months while I was an inpatient at the hospital, I exerted that freedom, and despite the loss, I chose to return to gratitude. Now, gratitude is a powerful force. So with that force, loving social support and daily rehab, I was able to go from using a wheelchair for the first 3 months to a 4-point walker, to a 4-wheeled walker, and then eventually I was discharged home using 2 single-point canes. Now, that was 2 years ago. And from that point on until today, my rehab has been my full-time job. I've been working with a multidisciplinary team who I've handpicked to work with me and help me achieve my mind, body, soul, health goals. So my rehab team has been consisting of physiotherapy, occupational therapy, chiropractics, naturopath, reflexologist, shiatsu, massage therapy, water therapy, craniosacral therapy. I do Pilates and yoga. I see a social worker, a psychotherapist, and have a daily practice of meditation and prayer. And I even meet with a group of Christian women regularly, and Kitty Wong is one of them, and we meet each other regularly to keep our lives accountable, to keep ourselves accountable to living as women of faith. Now, no doubt the pains and struggles since the accident have been horrible, but the last several years have been a blessing because it's been an opportunity for me to focus on myself. And with God's grace, I've been able to learn about myself. And I can now say that I love and accept myself unconditionally. And so with that, I'm growing. And as you can see now, I'm even walking without my cane indoors. Now I do need the wheelchair for long distances, and I have to wear orthotics, supportive shoes, and ankle supports as I'm still unable to walk barefoot. But I know that if I keep continuing to do what I've been doing the last several years, working on the health and growth of my mind, body, and soul, and continuing to focus on allowing God to mold me and use me, I know I'll continue to do amazing things. And one of them is to climb Mount Kilimanjaro this September. And you'll see. Life is good. Life is so good. I find myself saying that a lot every now and then. But you know what's ironic? Is I've only begun to feel the depth of how good life can be now that I've felt how bad life can be. It was only when I stopped to sit in the pain that I realized life can be good. You see, some people might think that I'm normally a positive, happy person, but really, sometimes I feel like I'm going crazy. Crazy with insecurity, jealousy, worry, stress, and yes, depression. But it was only when I stopped to sit in the lows that I felt my highs. Now I'm going to share 2 of my lowest points with you, and you'll see what I mean. Just about a year and a couple months ago, I went to Cuba with my family. But instead of 7 days of sun, fun, and relaxation, it was 7 days of sun, frustration, and limitation. Because I have to wear orthotics and ankle supports and running shoes just to walk, I couldn't go in the swimming pool. I couldn't go into the ocean. I couldn't even walk on the beach barefoot. What's the point of going to the beach? I was even going through a loss of identity because the things that I identify myself with doing, I couldn't do. My cousins would go clubbing every night. Now, I'm a dancer, so I'm always in the middle of that dance floor tearing it up. But no. Instead, I'd either be in my room, in pain, tired, or sitting on a chair in the corner watching everyone else have fun. And if any of you have been to an all-inclusive resort, you know how they have the animation staff that get people to participate in daily activities. Well, that used to be me as well. I was used to participate. But again, no, I couldn't because I either couldn't physically participate or I was in pain and tired. Needless to say, I came back from that Cuba trip feeling depressed and confused. I came back from that trip telling my mom, I need to go on another trip. I need to be alone by myself. And so that's what I did. I hopped on a train. I went away to a spa resort where I could be alone by myself. Just me, my pain, and God. No computer, no internet, not even music, no cell phone. Just me, myself, and my pain. So I sat in my misery for a while until a realization hit me. I was actually doing yoga. And I realized, oh my gosh, for the past year, not once had I stopped to thank myself, to thank my body for all its recovery, to thank my mind for persevering, to thank my soul for just being. So after that, I got out my journal and I started reflecting on all the milestones that I had achieved up until that point. And then something came over me. Words started pouring out of my pen. And then within an hour, I had written a piece that I call Celebrating Life with a Disability. I had left for that spa retreat feeling like life is full of limitation and frustration, but I came back from that trip knowing that life is a celebration. And as life would have it, the Canadian Paraplegic Association emailed me asking if I would share a story at the 2011 International Day of Persons with Disability at City Hall. So I said my piece, And the Toronto Star, who was there, received it so well that they asked me to recite the speech again so they could videotape me and put it on their website for the world to hear. Irony. How ironic that something so ugly as my experience in Cuba paved the way for something beautiful to happen, not just for me, but others as well. How ironic that sitting in pain led me to discover a gift I never knew God had given me. The gift of writing and the gift of speaking. But that wasn't my lowest moment. My lowest moment actually didn't have anything to do with my disability. My lowest moment was just this past summer. See, this summer I had taken some mindfulness courses. But I knew that before I could go and teach the world on how to live mindfully, I had to delve into this practice myself, and so that's what I did. That summer I put the welcome mat out for all of myself to be. And let me tell you, I've explored many countries, but no worldly exploration has been as scary as the journey within. Those summer months were like being in a dark cave, alone with mirrors all around. And I'm finally seeing all these things about me that I was always too busy to ever realize. Things like, oh my gosh, I'm really insecure. Or, I'm really self-conscious. And oh, I'm jealous and I can be very resentful. And what really surprised me is how all of these habits of people-pleasing, worrying what other people thought about me, and even my desires to get married and have children, these all stem from one thing: my fear of being alone. Realizing that was like taking a box from under the bed, taking the lid off and pulling something out and looking at it for the first time. And I remember my lowest point, I was in my bedroom, in bed, alone, crying, and I'm facing this fear. And I really felt like the world was getting darker and darker and darker until all of a sudden, I felt God. And I knew from that moment on that I am never alone. From then, I've been able to let go of my fear of what other people think, my fear of being single, and even my fear of facing a future that's unknown. I was able to let go and let God. And since then, life has been flowing with abundance that sometimes I feel so high that I can fly. Irony. How ironic that when I face fear, I feel courage. How ironic that when I face weakness, I feel strength. But you know what, I lie. This is not ironic. This is not irony. This is life. Because now I know that life is only as good as it is bad. And life only gets as bright as it gets dark. So you know what I say to life? I say, bring it on, life. Bring it all on. Bring on the uphills with the downhills. Bring the rocky roads with the smooth roads. And bring those valley lows with those mountain highs. Because as long as I'm not 6 feet under, I'm on ground on this journey we call life. Now, don't get me wrong, I still get stressed, worried, and have anxiety sometimes. Just recently, I was feeling some stress and anxiety over the thought of how this fall my insurance funding for my rehab is going to be cut. So obviously there's some stress and worry about money. But then I stopped to reflect on 2012. 1 year ago this month, I was just being discharged from the hospital as an outpatient. 1 year ago this month, I could not have imagined that over the next 12 months, I would end up becoming a requested public speaker, sharing my story with radio, newspaper, television, parliament, schools and hospitals, even flying to Mexico to be a keynote speaker for a spirituality and wellness conference. 1 year ago, I could not have imagined that this past summer I would win an international poetry contest, and now my poetry being published bi-monthly in a magazine for the rest of 2013. 1 year ago, I could not have imagined that I would now be teaching mindfulness to not just patients, but healthcare professionals on how they too can learn to cope with pain, stress, and anxiety. 1 year ago, I could not have imagined that I would now be with the man who I think is perfect for me and I could imagine spending the rest of my life with. 1 year ago, I could not have imagined being here today with you, sharing my story of discovering amazing grace. But today, I know now that no imagination of mine, no plan of mine could ever compare to what God has planned for me. Because now I know that as I move forward facing this unknown future, that I can be confident not solely in myself and my abilities, but confident in God's plan. Now I know that God will continue to give me the grace to do anything He wills me to do. And now I know that all of these low and scary moments that come with living life, whether it appears as loss of health, job, or a loved one, that these moments are opportunities. Opportunities for me to return to God. An opportunity to let go. And in return, to receive. And be filled and overflow with His unconditional grace. And so as I conclude, I move forward with hope that we'll all journey together, not from a place without, but from a place of everlasting joy found within. Thank you.